Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
And on Tuesday, now the Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson called on people to protest outside the Russian embassy in London against the bombings on the Syrian city Aleppo. This morning, he's being questioned by MPs on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and Syria, Russia and Brexit are all on the agenda. In his opening remarks, he said Britain could control its borders and remain open to skilled labour.
It is vital to understand what Brexit is and what it is not. Yes, it means restoring our democracy and control of our laws and our borders and a fair bit of cash. But Brexit is emphatically not any kind of mandate for this country to turn in on itself, to haul up the drawbridge or to detach itself from the international community. And I know, as a former mayor of this city, how vastly our capital, and indeed our whole economy, has profited from London's role and the UK's role as a lodestar and a magnet for talent. And I believe there is no inconsistency whatever between the desire to take back control of our borders and the need to be open to skills from around the world. There is absolutely no inconsistency between ending the supremacy of EU law in this country, as we will, and being a major contributor to the security and stability and economic prosperity of the whole European region. We are leaving the EU, we are not leaving Europe.
OK, well, he is still being questioned right now, so let's listen in.
To getting into what we call running commentary about the negotiations, I'm not going to. I think we can do a great deal that will deliver a result in both goods and services for our businesses and for our friends.
But you wouldn't disagree with your fellow Secretary of State in saying that the WTO holds no fears?
Well, as I say, I think it will be getting into the minutiae of the negotiations now.
Okay, let's move on very quickly.
But I think there will be a great deal done.
Yeah. EU division, something we're not picking up. I've raised it on the floor of the House before, but what's your take? I mean, quite understandably, the spotlight is on our negotiating position, but if you look across at the EU, it's quite an interesting situation. You seem to have a split, an emerging split, a growing split, in fact, between the ideologists within the EU Commission and elected politicians who realise that, courtesy of the balance of trade in their favour, playing hardball may not be in their best interests. What can you tell us with regards to that situation as you see it?
I understand that point, and I've heard it quite a lot. I think it's important not to, I haven't actually tested that proposition yet with some of the key Commission people, but my impression is that they are faithful servants of Europe and of the EU, and they will ultimately do what they consider to be in the best interests of the entire Union, and I think that will be a deal that is beneficial to the electorates of the people of Europe, and that's where they'll end up. Of course, a certain amount of plaster has come off the ceiling in Brussels since the vote on June the 23rd. Of course, people feel they have a project. There was a fascinating article in the FT this morning by the French Prime Minister in which he spelt out this continued showed actually why we would say right to vote to leave, because he very emphatically spelt out this vision for a United States of Europe, a federal system with very defined boundaries, and I'm afraid not an ideal to which I think the British people really aspire, and I think we did the right thing, and I think we can make it work.
Do you think relations a few years out could actually improve the EU, because no longer will they have to contend with those awkward Brits, a thorn in their side, as they march towards ever closer political union, and it could make for a fresh relationship?
Of course, and I'm so glad to hear you speak in those terms. I think Europe is at its best when it's positive about the work it's engaged on, it sets itself a deadline, I think we should view the whole Brexit process as a positive thing. We are sorting out the UK problem. And after all, there has been a problem for decades. We didn't go into Schengen. Critically, we decided to stay out of stage 3 of monetary union in 1991. That was the moment, that was the basic moment of divergence. And I think all else really flowed from that. And what we're seeing, I think what we saw on June the 23rd was the logical conclusion of that divergence, of that basic drift by the British people away from that ideal, which is articulated by the French Prime Minister in the paper this morning. We don't want to be part of such a construct. And we've always made it clear. So it's always been very tense, because we said, no, we don't agree with this ever closer union. So we don't agree with the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice over this or that. And we've been the backmarkers. And to a certain extent, of course, some other countries have shielded their own apprehensions behind us. But it's up to them now to get on and take the thing forward.
Finally on Brexit.
OK, well, let's go to our political guru, Norman Smith, who's watching this morning. Anything that we didn't know before that he's said so far, Norman?
Well, Joanna, I thought what was interesting was the tone, actually, of Boris Johnson, very confident, trying to put the best possible outlook on Brexit. And in a way, that is why I think Theresa May put him in the Foreign Office, because she wanted someone there who could go out in the world, was a big charismatic figure, a big personality, who could sell Brexit to the rest of the world. And just listening to Boris Johnson today saying, look, the referendum didn't mean we were going to turn in on ourselves. There's no contradiction between having control of our borders and still being an outward, positive, welcoming country. And also saying to those who one MP dubbed the Ramonas, those who are unhappy about Brexit, saying, look, a lot of the doom and gloom that's been prophesied simply hasn't happened. He said there would be some what he called Sturm und Drang about Brexit, but in time we would feel the benefits. In terms of the detail, we didn't really get much more on the single market. Boris Johnson saying, look, we'll try and negotiate the best access for us that we can, but other countries in the EU, they want to get a good deal too. In other words, it's in their interest to keep trading with us. And on free movement, again, not much detail. He said free movement's not carved in tablets and stone. So, interesting thing, mainly the tone from Mr. Johnson.
Thank you very much, Norman. Stay across it and we'll check in with you again a little bit later. Thanks very much.
Now, new military options against Syrian forces must be considered by the West, according to the Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson. This as the Syrian army continues military operations to retake neighbourhoods in Aleppo. Syrian opposition activists say that more than a dozen airstrikes were carried out last night, killing at least 11 people. Boris Johnson told the Foreign Affairs Select Committee that he's called a meeting of his counterparts in America, France and Germany on Sunday to discuss the situation. He said there had to be a new set of options, but gave no details.
Most people, I think, are now changing their minds about this, and they're thinking, we can't let this go on forever. We can't just see Aleppo pulverised in this way. We have to do something. And I thought the mood of the House of Commons the other day was very telling. I think it has changed from 2013. Whether that means we can get a coalition together for more kinetic action now, I cannot prophesy.